Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. For more than 40 years, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. And their experienced team can walk you through the whole process, side by side, from test drive to service oil changes and beyond. I've loved tooling about the southern backroads and super highways this season in a Townsend Honda CR-V. And now I'm hooked on the great gas mileage, the comfortable maneuverability, and that backup camera for parallel parking success. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. The Southern Fork's culinary sponsor is Shermer Pecans. It's pecan season in Georgia right now, and if you've never tasted a fresh pecan, now's your chance. Fifth-generation pecan growers, Shermer Pecans, turned me on to how good a just harvested pecan can be. And I'm telling you, it's a world of flavor difference. If you're looking to stock up for the holiday season and beyond, they have lots of different size and package options for you, as well as a brand new product I'm really excited about. You are some of the first folks to know they've also added pecan flour to their online store. Not only does this flour add a wonderful nutty flavor to your recipes, it also adds health benefits to every baked good you make. If you're interested in experimenting with this flour this season, or any of Shermer's products in fact, head to shermerpecans.com and use code FALL21, no space, for 15% off all products for the month of October. That's SCHERMER pecans.com, and your code is FALL21. Taste how good Georgia pecans fresh out of the orchard can be. Come with me to a valley in eastern Tennessee filled with fresh mountain air and grass-filled pastures where cows wander and graze all day. This is the birthplace of the cheese of Sequatchie Cove Creamery, one of the South's foremost cheesemakers, whose Dancing Fern cheese wowed the American cheese community and beyond when it debuted in 2012. Located 35 minutes northwest from Chattanooga, this creamery is the brainchild of Nathan and Padgett Arnold, who work to capture the unique taste of this place through raw milk cheese production, a passion that Nathan pursued when he left the Cove to apprentice for a time in the Savoie region of France. I've been sampling their selections on Southern restaurant menus for years. And not only is it addictively delicious, it's produced through 100% solar power in a sustainable facility right on Sequatchie Cove Farm. You might never get the chance to make a visit to this magical place. But one bite, and it's as if you can feel that mountain sun as it moves across the valley. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Padgett.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Well, I'm so excited to be able to chat with you because last year, and actually for the last few years, I keep seeing Sequatchie Cove Creamery on my favorite menu lists in Western North Carolina and Tennessee.
Well, that's always great to hear.
Yeah.
The cheese really gets out there, and I just don't always know exactly at a given moment where it's, what menu it's on. And so I really like to hear from folks who are out and about in other parts of the world and encounter the cheese.
Well, that's definitely me, and that's why we're talking today. So, and I had to get you on vacation because when you're in the creamery, you're working hard.
That's right. Yes, it's just a little easier. My mother-in-law's with us on vacation, so I have a little bit more childcare support, and that's huge. So yeah, it just worked out really perfectly for this week.
Wonderful. Well, we need to get some specifics because I have spent some time on your website and haven't had a chance yet to invite myself to the farm and the creamery to check everything out in person. But it's very idyllic. Started with the farm, right? So you're part of a larger farm that is a different business.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great question because it's hard to always understand the relationship. And I think a lot of people wonder, but we have been on this farm. Nathan started there in 2003. So we're getting to, the 20-year mark, close anyway. And the Keeners, Bill and Miriam Keener, and actually Miriam's parents originally bought the farm in the early 90s. So it's going on a 30-year run that this family has been operating this farm. And now Bill and Miriam's son and his wife Ashley, and they have 3 kids. And so there's 4 generations. And then there's Nathan and I. And we aren't related. A lot of people think we're all, one big family, but we've just been working with them for a long time. And our original relationship, we kind of came into the farming community and, what was really just the beginnings of a sort of small farm, local food movement around Chattanooga, right around the year 2000. And so that's how we met each other. And Nathan and I were working on a different farm, and slowly over the course of about 7 years, Nathan transitioned over to working at Sequatchie Cove. And then I came a few years later, but our background was growing vegetables. And so we did that for about 10 years, and I kept it going and sort of paid the bills while Nathan was researching and traveling and learning how to be a cheesemaker. But we just became really inspired by this farm, this particular place just kind of called us, and it's a really special farm. And I think that's really, pretty obvious, from the photography and everything on the website.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And really, we're learning so much more about the word terroir as it pertains to things much further afield or beyond wine. And cheese is a natural stepping stone for that because of the milk. And I have heard you use the phrase, the milk is very dynamic. Can you talk about what that means to you, and also what specific characteristics of the milk in your cove at your farm from your grass-fed cows, what kind of elements that they bring to your cheeses?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's just a huge question. You can write a dissertation, I know, but sorry, I just like to start big.
But no, that's good. I mean, because that really just sort of encompasses where this, where we really were coming from, getting this project off the ground and, seeking to do something that very few people really would ever go after is milk cows and make cheese. And, it's really all about this place and about the animals and how we are able to raise them on this farm, and just the philosophy behind it plays really, into where the source of our inspiration originally came from. But what we didn't know getting into this was, well, actually, just to be very frank, we didn't know diddly squat about being dairy farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where I feel like, and the milk is very dynamic, and I can say that in sort of a broad type statement, but it really is. And it's so, there's a lot of technical aspects of producing the milk that comes way before the cheese is ever in the picture. Being a farmstead creamery, for us, cheese making was the focus and the big challenge that we felt like there was the hurdle for us, because we were farmers already, but we didn't really know how to make milk and raise cows and, create a really high quality milk made for cheese making. And so over the years, we've been doing this for 11 years now. And I feel like now, really have gotten a hold of the milk production side of it. Mm-hmm. And it's so important. It's everything. Like you said, it's akin to winemaking and sort of capturing the terroir of a place. And we see it that way so clearly and always have, but just to really do it is another level of really, to grasp everything that's involved. So we feel like it was just, a lot to try to take on at once. And what I've said to other people new to the industry is I wouldn't do what we did.
Right. We made every mistake, so please learn from us, right?
Yeah, well, right. And we just kind of were naive about a little bit. We just were dedicated farmers, salt of the earth. We want to do this. We want to make something that really reflects back on the location and this special place, and and how we raise the animals and the breed of animals and the quality of the forage that they have in the pasture. And there's just so many elements to it that we've realized how to fine tune in order to produce not only high quality milk that's very clean and pure, and we're constantly testing milk quality and having a lab look at it all the time, and just really to understand it on that level, and and also really hone our skill in breeding the animals that we want to raise on this farm, because we are not in a very dairy friendly climate. And so we've really had to take a long time to create the herd, and how well adjusted that herd is to our system really plays into the milk quality, and how well, and sort of stress free these animals are living really plays into the milk quality.
In general, all of this, farming in general, is such a time thing and such a process thing. Right. And you learn season by season. But before we get into that, I want to just circle back and to the word dynamic, because that means that the milk changes depending on the cows. And also, in the spring, the cheese will taste different when the cheese produced from the spring milk will.
Absolutely.
Because they're eating different things, because they're on grass except when they're sleeping.
Right. They're on grass year round. We do have, the benefit of the warmer climate where we can continually produce annual forage. We have to seed it and really intentionally make it be there, but we have something growing year round, and those cows have forage. And, that's really important. That's something that we felt was, part of the strong foundation of why we wanted to make cheese and produce milk. However, we have gone to a seasonal dairy. So now we really milk cows only from February through the middle or towards the end of December, right before Christmas. We dry off the cows. So we have a seasonal dairy, and we're really now trying to create a cheesemaking schedule that reflects most optimally according to what milk we have at the time of year. And because, right, like just like you said, it changes. It's very different in the spring. It has a lot to do with what they're eating and the environment, the climate, the course of the year and the environmental influences. But then it's also about their lactation cycle. It's also about, again, like the cow breeding and understanding
so much about cows.
Yeah. I mean, like lactation, early lactation milk versus late lactation milk is just different no matter what they're eating. So we're trying to capture all those changes. We're also trying to capture all the dynamic, kind of environmental influences that are going on this farm, and then sort of distill it all down into these different styles of cheese. And so we produce all this farmstead cheese with seasonal milk. It's unpasteurized milk. So like I said before, we're paying really close attention to that milk quality for so many reasons. And we're really doing this because the type of cheeses that we make were chosen very carefully. They're kind of the appropriate styles that intentionally capture what's going on at a given point in time on a farm. And they're traditional old world style cheeses that we've adapted to be our own styles and our own kind of original recipes that came from something that was an old world style, mostly French influence, but some Swiss and Italian as well. But so we're really paying attention to the dynamics of the milk in order to produce the cheeses. But the other thing that sort of works against us is that we need to have that cheese year round to sell, like sales, the business, trying to create an income stream and have a, very solid revenue stream, make something sustainable business wise doesn't really, it doesn't actually marry well with capturing those seasonal changes, and trying to only make Cumberland or only make Dancing Fern with a certain amount of milk, certain number of months of milk. I'm trying to have it year round because I need something to sell. And so those two things have always sort of come up against each other. Like we're butting heads between the production and sales. And that's pretty
always
common.
That's farming, right? And that's
Yeah.
winemaking, which is farming,
right? Exactly.
But this is, I've been on this journey. I'm actually learning more about wine and really interested in taking some wine classes. And there's so much similarity because the cheese is a preservation model for the milk. When the milk, so it's a snapshot of that particular year in that particular season. So my favorite, and I haven't had all the cheeses, but the one that really pushes all of my buttons is Dancing Fern. So, and I know it's similar to a style of French cheese that we can't get in the United States because it's not allowed to import because it's a fresh milk cheese. So, can you talk a little bit about Dancing Fern? Because it's your original, right?
Right. Well, it came very soon after. Cumberland was the first one, and being a tome, being that Cumberland just being sort of the one that's a lot more forgiving and something that we could start with, just make cheese and sell it and like figure that out. But very early on, Dancing Fern and Reblochon is the style, the traditional French cheese that's no longer available in the U.S. as far as the raw milk Reblochon because it is not aged to the 60-day minimum, which is the FDA regulation. So we make an unpasteurized Reblochon style, and we do age it to the 60-day minimum. And we do that by keeping it at a much colder temperature for a good portion of the aging time so that it's slowing way down. We're just trying to basically hold it and not let it get too ripe so that we can meet that requirement.
Gotcha.
So it's not ideal, but we've been able to, kind of figure it out, and we really have a standout cheese. Since 2012, that's when Dancing Fern really sort of made a name for itself at the American Cheese Society. And I think people really in the cheese world who know, kind of the broader spectrum of what's out there and traditional cheeses really identified with Dancing Fern as being a very authentic Reblochon style that's otherwise just not available in this country. And so it really just made its mark pretty prematurely, in my opinion, to think about it now, because we just weren't ready quite yet to be, in that bigger arena, I think, of, just the national list of cheesemakers. But it started, really just popping up on everybody's favorites list. And it continues to be, just something that people seek out, and they've heard about it from a chef or a blog or, something, and they come emailing me asking, how do I get this cheese? And we really thought that it would be something like that, because Nathan, my husband, who's really the brains behind the Sequatchie Cove Creamery and the cheese making specifically.
But he doesn't like to talk on the phone.
He's not, right. I'm the people person, and I make sure we sell everything. I'm better with people and money. And he's the science and art person. He's like an artist with a sciencey flair. So it's great as a cheesemaker. But yeah, but he was in his research years between like 2006 and 2010. He did a lot of research and traveling, and had some very significant, influential people come along that guided him. But Dancing Fern, at the time, we didn't really know the name of the cheese, but we had this idea, the concept of creating that reblochon style and making it raw and making it farmstead. And it would be so special because it doesn't otherwise exist in the marketplace in the U.S. And we didn't realize how big of a deal that was. I mean, I didn't. It is a very meticulous cheese, easy to screw it up, and it's hard to get it just right. And it wasn't a very good cheese for us as very beginners to, all of a sudden get a lot of recognition for, because it's hard to make that cheese consistent. And we just weren't really ready yet. And so it was stressful. We won an award. All of a sudden we had more demand and more recognition. All of these customers were coming, and we just weren't able to really produce it consistently. And, so it was a little bit of a, it was great, but then it just sort of put us in our place. You guys are amateurs. You might think you have something, but you don't really know how to do it yet. And so that's good. Maybe it was a really, just the blessing of another, something just for us to digest the complexity of what we were taking on and really take it seriously and not be cavalier about it.
Yeah. It always happens how it's supposed to happen, right?
Exactly.
Right. And so, it's going to be stressful. Those 10,000 hours are no joke as far as your learning and your teaching yourself and stuff. But a lot of the buzz about you is definitely from the chef community and the national, the cheesemongers and the people, frankly, outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So you're bringing you're bringing not only an interesting, unusual style cheese to the Chattanooga market and that regional area, that region, you're also bringing a philosophy that is taking hold at the time in 2012, is not as established. I mean, your creamery runs completely on solar power, and this is more of a regenerative kind of farming practice, and there's just it's a lifestyle cycle. You're working with and under and in another farm. So all of that is just a lot. I mean, how did you kind of turn on Chattanooga diners to this, Chattanooga eaters to this cheese? Did you hit the farmer's market? Did you just hand out samples? I know a lot of people just hit the pavement, right?
Yes, and I did do that. And because I'd had a decent, decades worth of farming and direct marketing under my belt from my vegetable growing years, it was really kind of a natural transition for me because I built so many relationships. And it was, of course, in the veggie days, much more Chattanooga centric, but it was very quick for us to realize in the cheese world, we were going to look outside of that immediate community, and we figured that out really fast. But because where Chattanooga's located, we're about halfway between Nashville and Atlanta, and then Birmingham's not far. We had those three cities that became sort of, the next level. And so we went to farmers markets, and I would travel. It was insane. We would get up at like 1 a.m., so we could get to the market in Atlanta on a Saturday morning. And then we would, alternate between Nashville and Atlanta on Saturdays, and then in Birmingham too. And so we did that for a long time. It was great to, kind of put a face to the cheese and have a lot more just direct to consumer exposure, but it wasn't sustainable. And we realized another very fast lesson for us was, if we're going to milk cows, we need to make a lot of milk. Like, it's not economically viable any other way. You got to really scale it up. And so we just knew, like, we got to seek out more of a wholesale angle here. And the American Cheese Society was a huge component, still is. But that trade organization and the annual conference that they hold, and then the competition and all that, that's where we plugged in and put a lot of our time and energy. And we built relationships around the Southeast. And then pretty soon we were, in contact with people in the Northeast and the West Coast. And it really didn't take long for us to find little niche markets outside the Southeast, because we had such a unique product, and some, folks that are out there that really recognize that, we were able to access those people and those, those potential customers through the American Cheese Society. So that was really from the very beginning part of where we were headed. But I loved the farmers market years, and it was just like something I knew really well. But now we just do one market in Chattanooga on Wednesdays. And so I'm actually skipping market. It's going on like right now. And I'm on vacation. But,
okay. Wow. Skipping for the Southern Fork.
I know. It's right. That's right. I'm doing some other cheese duties this week.
That's right. Cheese duties here. So I know you have a new cheese, and we're not going to get the chance to talk about it as much because I wanted to jump in on the Dancing Fern, but just tell us the name of the new cheese.
It's called Walden.
Walden. And obviously I'm going to have links on thesouthernfork.com so people can click through and learn about these cheeses. But,
awesome.
I'm more interested, Padgett, you and Nathan have developed a new cheese after, years, and you've developed cheeses along the way as you've grown. What really has cheese and cheese making more specifically taught you that is a little bit different theoretically than farming? About food, about community, about systems, not just about scaling up or doing the dynamic stuff, but really just in that theory, because you both come to the land with a passion and a love for it. But cheese is a different aspect, a different way to interact with nature.
It is, really. It's very different. It's much more compartmentalized. And so it's created a really different lifestyle, especially for Nathan. He's not on the farm. Once upon a time, he was out there, moving the cows, rotating them through the pastures, milking the cows, and then taking some of the milk home and making cheese in our kitchen, and his whole foundation came from, being on the farm and working with the animals, and then transitioning over to being, lead cheesemaker. He's inside all the time. We're on the farm, but it's through the window that he really experiences it. So, that was a really big shift.
But his commute is good.
Right. We're a little further. We moved about 10 miles away, but we used to live right down the street, like 1 mile from the farm. And having that proximity in the early years of launching this was absolutely essential. But our team all commutes to the farm, and we have sort of a bubble of a business that functions, and, we interact, and of course, utilizing, the resources there and the facilities. And we have a great relationship with the rest of the farm. But we have somewhat of an isolated sort of existence there, where the team doesn't really otherwise interact with the farm unless they're just, casually chatting or out looking around, at what's going on in the garden or something like that. So we have a very sort of specific business that's functioning and operating within this larger multi-enterprise establishment, but none of us feel really like farmers, aside from Randall, who's our herd manager and has been with us since 2011 and runs the dairy, all the breeding, milking the cows. And he and I work together, in the vegetable garden. And that's how we first met him. So we're running a dairy operation, and it's an agricultural enterprise, one of several that is ongoing. But we, as the cheese team, and myself, I'm more like the marketing team. There's a one-person team. But we don't, no, I have one other person that's my support system, but we don't really, I don't feel like a farmer anymore, as much as I do feel like sort of a representative of everything that we're doing to the outside world. And so
more of it, that cheese is a liaison to
it
a
is.
whole lifestyle that's happening behind it.
Right.
Not just a workplace community, but, it's a life cycle for all kinds of things, from grasses to cows and, interns,
exactly.
Rotating in and out. But it's a successful creamery. I mean, you should be congratulated on that. I wonder now, what's making you hungry? What's next for you?
Gosh, I like that question. What makes me hungry? But I mean, literally, it sounds kind of cheesier, like contrived, but truly, like wine and cheese is what I really like makes my mouth water like immediately, and I look forward to it. And I try to take time to enjoy what we've created, and not always come at it from the angle that I think from Nathan's perspective, it's always a study and, and kind of he's looking for the flaws, and it's hard to enjoy something when you're always ready to pick it apart and analyze it and look for what's wrong. And so I try to find ways to really plug it into our lives where it's partly, just about enjoying it. And the wine just, sort of rolls with that element of the time of day and everything else. But I really try to do that. And I think it's helped us, just to find a way to see it as the source of enjoyment that we are trying to, offer to our customers. Like, this is what it's all about, but then we don't take time to really, have that for ourselves. And so in the past, more recent times, that's just something that's more like a conscious decision for me. But yeah, I mean, truly, I love to explore pairings. I want to learn more about it. I want to feel more confident when I speak about pairings and, just how flavors interact. And because I'm not a cheesemonger and I didn't come from like really a culinary background, I was more all about, farming and agriculture, and have a horticulture degree. But I see cheese as something that touches people emotionally. And it also is, it really enriches the culinary world. And I love that.
Does. Especially certain cheeses.
Right. I mean, I just love, even though I feel like I can't take credit for really understanding that much about the culinary world and gastronomy, and but I really love sort of being involved and being inspired continuously by what's out there and what people are doing with our cheeses, and and plenty of other cheeses as well, like the other cheesemakers in our community. That's another thing that really kind of makes me hungry. It's like, I want to continue evolving our relationship with this industry, because it's an amazing industry full of awesome, generous, knowledgeable, passionate people. And what they're doing is just as much like what gets me excited as what we're doing.
I'm excited. I'm on a cheese journey myself that I can't really talk too much about, but will be showing up in a publication at some point. And cool. So I love finding the stories, and I find the taste first and then the story. So that's an aspect of my personality. What's an aspect of your personality that fits like a puzzle piece in this world of cheese?
I think it's really my relationship to the people. I love the cheese and, of course, the farm and my connection to that place and, just the story that we have there, agriculturally speaking. But when I really think about what I do and my contribution to the business and where I've found my place, it has to do with the people. And that's the people that we're selling our product to, our network of customers, being that point person and constantly, in communication and building those relationships. And then with our staff and, the HR kind of aspect of running a small business. And it's the people where I find my own kind of journey here. And I'm a people person. I'm outgoing. I'm sort of naturally sales related because my dad's a salesman. My brother's a salesman. It just sort of goes along with our genetics, I guess. And it's funny because, when this whole thing was being dreamed up and we were like, we're going to milk cows and make cheese. And Padgett, you're going to sell it all, because I was just really good at selling the vegetables. And, that's like what I really do and enjoy. And it's funny now because I'm a little out of practice since the pandemic shut down food shows, conferences, tastings, events and things. There's been this disconnect and I feel a little like green all over again about just, getting back into it. And it's just been a little bit of like, where, how am I going to get that back? My mojo. I need my mojo back.
You
but
just need
I
to
still
eat some
have
cheese.
it.
Yeah, you just need to eat
I mean,
some
it's all
cheese and
about
you'll remember.
getting that cheese into somebody's mouth, and then we have something to talk about, and everybody's
That's right.
excited and happy, and it makes it kind of easy.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Give me some Dancing Fern, and you can talk while I chew.
Yeah,
So,
I can.
So, quick fire. What's keeping you up at night?
Just a little bit of general uncertainty, and what the next crisis is going to be. I feel like we're all living in this new culture now of like, we're ready for the next crisis or emergency or, something sort of interrupting the normal flow of life. And so I feel like we were really hit hard, food service in general, and, just the industry that we're in and the customers that we rely on. And they were hit so hard by this pandemic. And I feel like we've put a lot back together and the pieces are coming back together, but there's just a sense of unsettled, it's unfinished. And we just now know there's something difficult right around the next corner. And I think I've always had that sort of sense, as a farmer and as a small business owner and trying to like create this thing that we've made that's just full of curveballs, unexpected problems. And so it's pretty much just par for the course. But I think the stakes are higher now. Like it's not just about, us as this trying to be paving the way and pioneers as cheesemakers and regenerative farmers. Like it's about everybody.
We're all up at night a lot.
We are, right? I mean,
it makes sense.
We can relate to each other on that, and I feel like it wasn't such a prominent thing in all of our consciousness, until the past year and a half or so. And I don't know. I feel hopeful, though. I don't want to, kind of be all doom and gloom. I just think I just feel that sense of uncertainty.
It's hard to stand down yet, right?
Yeah.
It's just hard to stand down. But I know that I'm going to have Dancing Fern in a picnic basket. I am going to lay out for you a dream meal scenario. So this is something that I do for all Southern Fork guests. I actually have a magic picnic basket. And with it, I can time travel, Padgett. I can go back and get one more dish of something that you'd love to taste again. I can conscript anybody to cook anything that you would like. I can source for you, and I can cook a little bit. So I'd love to just bring you some of your favorite things. Whatever is coming to mind as I lay out this scenario counts.
Wow. Oh, man. If we're talking about incorporating the cheeses,
we don't have to at all. This is just what you want, not what Sequatchie Cove wants, but like, what is the stuff that you crave when I say, what would you love to have? What, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's so hard. I don't know. I feel like I love to enjoy as much seasonal food when it's, at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
Fig preserves.
Fig preserves.
Like
yes.
real homemade fig preserves from the season and muscadines.
Mm-hmm.
And those things with the dancing fern this time of year is just what I would love. That's what I conjure up in my mind as like the ultimate. That's my favorite thing to have with dancing fern. And apples. I'm all about apples and winter squash this time of year. We just, we really eat off the farm and whatever's coming in during this, particular season. I feel like I've just been in sort of that pattern now for so long, my body craves it.
Mm-hmm.
So, roasted butternut squash, some fresh apple cider or fermented apple cider. Those both go really well with the fall, just what I'm in the mood for, I guess, this time of year.
And how do you cut your butternut squash? Because that's the worst part of it, right?
It's hard to do. I've realized that like I can take it from like cut it long ways from the top down and really just, kind of get it started and then go back and forth with the knife, like seesaw.
And try not to cut your finger. Yes.
And
Yes.
like if I can get it right in the center at the top and sort of get a little groove going, then I'll seesaw down.
Yep, that's me too.
That's how I do it. And then the squash doesn't roll as easily that way. So yeah, and delicata squash, I love those. They're faster. They're just like a quick, easy dinner. You can fry them, bake them. Those are like sort of the go-to comfort foods right now for me. And
well, if people want to learn more about Sequatchie Cove Creamery and their beautiful line of cheeses, see some images of the farm and the cheesemaking process, as well as Padgett's face behind that voice, that very Tennessee voice, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there so you can click through. And if you like what you hear, this is an ongoing journey for me as well as you. And I'm always investigating little eddies and bends in my culinary creek, so to speak. And it was Sequatchie Cove that really, when I went up into the Appalachian Mountains last year and got to go to Southwest Virginia, and I had been to Chattanooga twice before, I was like, okay, I keep eating this cheese and loving it. So here we are. So thank you so much.
It's fun to hear that
today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Well, it matters when people put names of producers on menus, there are people that notice. And and there are people that you don't know every day eating your delicious cheese. So
that's great. It's a good reminder, and it is. We owe a lot to the chef community and those who are really trying to create more food awareness and giving credit to the producers who are out there. And I see chefs as being such a, the gatekeeper.
They really, really are. So thanks again for taking time to chat with me, Mobile, today. And I look forward to coming to visit the creamery, and I'll put on my hair net and get on in there.
Yeah.
So
get your boots, your hair net, and your smock.
I'll be ready to go. Thank you so much for this. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure, Stephanie. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. Happy Halloween. The last 2 weeks have been my grown-up version of treats and no trick for Halloween, and that is the pairing of wine and cheese. So I hope you'll go back and listen to Sarah Pierre if you haven't had a chance to listen yet. And be safe out there this weekend. Enjoy yourself, and I'll talk to you next time.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?